And the question is, why did they make gold tier one? I want people to keep that in the back of their mind. Why is gold tier one? Maybe it makes a little more sense why the central banks are accumulating and taking possession of the gold because of its riskless elevated tier one status. So anyways, 2021 comes around, and now I'm going to go back to what we talked about with the dollar being the world reserve currency. So the dollar was backed by gold as far as governments were concerned. We promise that any of the gold that we're holding for you, you can exchange your dollars, or even just the dollars that you own. You can exchange them for gold at a fixed rate of $35 whenever you want. So now we're going to get something a little closer to you, Robert, and that was towards the end of the Vietnam War. I've heard a lot of your podcasts where you talk about your experiences there, and in the end, towards the end of the Vietnam War, President de Gaulle from France realized that we were issuing more dollars and treasuries to fund the war than we had gold backing these promises. So he sent warships filled with dollars to New York Harbor and said to, President Nixon, we want our gold back for these dollars. And we gave it to him. And he bled down a very large portion of the gold held at the U.S. Treasury. And at that moment, Nixon said, okay, August of 1971, that's it. Windows closed temporarily, although it's never opened back up. So it's been a long temporary. But we went back on our promise to the world. And it was at that moment that the dollar was backed by nothing. And so the question that I ask the people out there, and it's amazing how few people know the answer to this question, is what has made the dollar the world reserve currency ever since? And you get a myriad of answers, usually centered around our military, or we have the biggest and most robust economy, or whatever. And I guess you could argue some of that is true. But what has made the dollar the world reserve currency was that 3 years later, Henry Kissinger was dispatched to Saudi Arabia. And he made a promise to the Saudis. He said, how about this? We will back you. Well, let's call it a joint military cooperation agreement. And we will stand behind you. We'll provide you munitions and support. No one will ever mess with the Saudi kingdom. But for that, OPEC is going to value dollar or oil in dollars globally. Okay, they said, fine. And so since 1974, every single country on the planet has had to own, virtually every country has had to own dollars in order to buy oil. And it has created this synthetic demand for the dollar called the petrodollar and made the dollar the world reserve currency. If you want to power your country, you must own dollars. It is the protection of the Saudi kingdom, and by default, the relationship with OPEC that has enabled the dollar to be the world reserve since 1974, because 3 years prior, the link to gold was severed. The dollar was at that point fiat, backed by nothing. And obviously, we all know the history. Since that point, the dollar's lost over 90% of its value. But that's for a discussion for a different day.
Right.
And so,
and that's why Ma was saying, that's why I say savers are losers. Why would you save dollars when inflation's running at about 16%? They reported it at 8%, but it's really at 16%. So you're going negative 16 on your money? Why would you save dollars? But these idiots, oh, you got to save money, get out of debt. I'm going, wait a minute. The dollar is created via debt. Don't you get that? And the only way they pay it back is via your taxes. Idiot, can't you get that? And so that's how the Rich Dad Company was founded, Andy, and I'm not the most popular guy with Wall Street right now. But anyway, I'm glad you're saying what you're saying. One more thing is what happened in 1974 was ERISA was passed. ERISA's Income Retirement Securities Exchange, something like 401k IRAs. Also in 1974, the gold became legal for Americans to own. So 74 was a very big year. So I had all this gold I was smuggling in from Hong Kong. I could now own it legally. And then, exactly as I said, Kissinger promises the Saudis will protect you as long as everybody in the world must buy oil in dollars. So it became the petrodollar, no longer a gold-backed dollar. Am I correct on that?
100%. Exactly. And that's perfect. That's exactly right. And then comes mile marker number 3. And no one knows this. And
I know.
It just absolutely baffles me that nobody knows this one. And I would say this marker is way more significant probably than the two preceding. And the fact that our media doesn't say anything about it, I find it to be deplorable. And, I guess when you realize that every newspaper, radio station, television station, magazine in the United States is owned by 4 companies, there is no fair and balance. There is no, we're being fed the wrong information, because this next moment, I think, sets the stage for everything that's going to happen in this country moving forward. And that is what happened the day that we left Afghanistan. Now, I don't have to tell you, as being a former Marine, that what happened when we left Afghanistan, to me as an American patriot, and I am a patriot, and I love this country, I feel blessed to be here and for the opportunities this country has afforded me and my family. And look, we come from nothing. When we started this company, we come from nothing. My father's middle name is Miles. His best friend's middle name is Franklin. We borrowed $60,000 from his friend to start a company, and we just eclipsed $7 billion in sales. We are the American dream. I love this country, but I will tell you that as an American patriot, I was embarrassed to almost call myself an American the day we left Afghanistan, leaving behind enemy lines something that was something we never would have done in the country I grew up in. You would never leave servicemen and women behind enemy lines. You would never leave the people who trusted you with their lives, the freedom fighters, behind enemy lines and give their biometrics to the Taliban. And I think there is no coincidence to the announcement of this mile marker number 3, because we embarrassed ourselves on a massive scale with people hanging from a transport plane as the last plane out of Afghanistan is going, knowing we have Americans that are still there today. It's inexcusable. And it's deplorable. And I think it, in many ways, changed the way the world looks at the United States, or at least our leadership, shall we say. And there's no coincidence to the timing of this massive announcement. Now, once again, what makes the dollar world reserve? Oh, yeah, it's the protection of the Saudi kingdom. What happened the day after we left Afghanistan? Russia and Saudi Arabia announced a joint military cooperation agreement. What? Are you kidding me? What? Russia is now protecting Saudi Arabia? And the day after that, guess who did it again? Nigeria makes the same announcement that Nigeria and Russia are now Russia is protecting Nigeria through a joint military cooperation agreement. They're maybe the 5th or 6th largest OPEC producing country, and we know what Saudi Arabia is. Subsequently, we've already seen that Nigeria is selling their oil to China right now for yuan-denominated bond that is immediately convertible into gold on the Shanghai Gold Exchange. It's called the Petro-Yuan bond. And because it is immediately convertible into gold on the Shanghai Gold Exchange, this is how countries like Iran sidestep our sanctions. They'll sell their oil to the Chinese in the Petro-Yuan bond, and they can immediately convert it to gold on the Shanghai Gold Exchange into kilo bars and take possession of it. This is why the Shanghai Gold Exchange has delivered close to 100 times more gold than we have, the COMEX, which sets the price, because these countries are doing just that. And guess who else is doing it? Saudi Arabia. So you have the linchpin of the dollar hegemony, the Saudis, and now Nigeria, 2 of the 13 OPEC member countries, selling their oil already to China, both being protected by Russia. Nigeria, part of the Belt Road Initiative, being protected by China. They're selling their oil in something other than dollars. This is a huge deal. Of course, we're not talking about it, but it is a massive deal.